Welcome to TORAH Talk. I am your host, William Hall, broadcasting live out of Kingsland, Texas, USA, with another episode, I already forgot, 26, 25 controversial issues with that controversial Rabbi, Chaim Coffman. Rabbi, welcome back to the show. Welcome back. Good to see you again. Let's pray this thing holds out.
Don't move. Don't freeze. Freeze frame.
Tell me when I can move. So basically, just let all you guys know ahead of time. If this thing drops, just be patient. We'll eventually get it back up and running one of these weeks. But yeah, we missed a few shows because my recording software, Wirecast, was failing, and I think it was being attacked by something stupid that I had downloaded, some program for. It's like an alternative to Skype. And anyway. Let's hope that's what it was anyway. So if we hold out tonight and can do a solid recording, I'm going to be incredibly excited because, man, I've spent tons of hours. Hey, son. But I'm ready to go with this. This is going to be a really good show, good topic that will interest many. And it's going to interest many in the wrong way. But, you know, it is what it is. You know, this is something that's so far what I've seen is could very well be one of the most universally controversial issues that I've seen, like, on a daily basis. You know, when you see different things on whether it's Facebook or whether it's you know, just in your community circles, I hear stories all the time about people wanting to convert to Judaism, and they go to a synagogue and they feel like they've just been like trampled on, like they're criminals and get ran off, you know, like they're poisonous or they got the cooties, spiritual cooties or whatever. And then you have
spiritual cooties, that's it.
And then you have those, which is going to lead us up to tonight, who maybe they want to convert, maybe they're not sure, but they want to participate in Shabbat, and they're told that you can't even breathe on Shabbat. You can't even I mean, you can't touch it with a 10-foot pole, go to work, you know. And it almost paints a picture as if they're saying, no, you have to be like a slave. You can't rest on the Sabbath day, you know. And it really gets that bad. Now, some of the stuff we're going to cover tonight is going to be pretty diverse. We may have to make a couple shows out of this. You know, is it okay for, you know, a non-Jew to keep the Sabbath at all? And if for the non-Jew, you've got these different classifications. You've got, you know, the Noahide, which technically is just a non-Jew, maybe, and who on a very bare minimum believes there's one God, and that's about it, right? Then you have, you know, other terms. I can't put the right titles on them or name them probably the way that they should be, but there's so many terms and terminologies to describe different levels of the non-Jew, and so for me, I wouldn't even give them names. I'd give them numbers. You know, 1 through 10. Which one is the most spiritual? Are you a
Let's see how we can confuse everybody by giving different names that just make everyone messed up and say, "Gee, I don't even know where I'm starting from. Why are you giving so many names for it?"
Right, so you've got the Ger Toshav, the Ger Tzaddik, you know, just the Noahide, and there's different descriptions given to all of them. But at the end of the day, our discussion today needs to revolve around can a non-Jew keep the Sabbath day away from a synagogue, whether it be in their own home, in a home group, and if they can, to what level can we? I'm a non-Jew. One of these days, I plan on converting. But let's just say, for example, maybe I don't. Maybe I decide to stay like I am, so I can just kind of continue doing TORAH Talk for the rest of our lives and all this other stuff, which I have no problem with either. But let's just say that
bothering the thousands of people out there who just want to have a normal life, but no, you come in every week or every other week.
I know.
But please, let's start a campaign. Do not let William convert ever.
Okay, so now I'm going to kind of bring. You're funny. So now I'm going to kind of bring the magnifying glass in a little closer now. Okay, let's pick on me, because this whole thing started with the post that I put up on Facebook, and I was just putting
everybody always picking on me. Yeah.
And it was a sincere thought. I was just thinking, what would it be like now? Because, I mean, I used to teach Christianity, and I used to teach Messianic. You know, we had a home group here doing Messianic for a long time, had a Torah scroll, the whole 9 yards. And but I closed the doors on it because, you know, I walked away from idolatry, and now I'm serving Hashem through TORAH Talk and through these means. But I was thinking it might be kind of nice to start having maybe a meeting here once a month or something. And I just put a picture up on YouTube, just a photograph of our 2 Torah scrolls, one little training scroll and then another full-size like Torah scroll on parchment. And I just put on there, you know, the caption about having a meeting. You know, what do you guys think about doing this, whatever. And then a good Facebook friend, Michael Ben David, I believe it was, obviously chimed in and let me know some things. I kind of knew some of the stuff he said, but I wasn't fully trained on. So I'm actually glad he came in and told me what he told me. But there was another character on there who decided to take it about 10 steps further. And we'll leave that name out.
That's social media. That's what happens.
Yeah. So, but on the big point, I think it's a good idea for everybody to be taught on this in the eyes of Orthodox Judaism, you know, and not just today's Orthodox Judaism, but taking it way back. And that's where you come in. So how far can...
Why, I'm that old?
You're ancient,
go way
man.
Back.
Yeah, I'm thinking about the Rambam. So, yeah, so, you know, and in this, we're going to be covering questions, like I said, is how much can, you know, can we read from a Torah scroll? I mean, I wouldn't think the answer would be yes on that, but, I mean, that's the questions people are thinking. You know, can we wear, while we're actually praying, can I wear a talit, you know, that has tzitzit on it, you know? Can a non-Jew wear tefillin? Not really too concerned with that, but you could probably hit it briefly. Like I said, this could be a couple class shows, you know, a couple classes for this one show. But I think this is something.
Could be like Family Feud. Survey says.
Yeah. So okay, so that's where we'll get going.
Get the boobies fried.
All right, Rabbi. So yeah, I'm just going to turn it over to you and let you do your thing. I'll be watching, listening in, and interrupting you as much as I can, just to
that I'm sure.
shape and curve, and you know, make sure you're not overlooking something that I might be thinking that you're unaware of that I'm thinking. So, but that's about it. But anyway, I'm glad everybody is watching. The phone lines I will turn on. If you call in, please make the question specifically about the title of the show. Can a non-Jew or can a Noahide keep the Sabbath day? That's going to be the topic for the show, maybe next show too. If you call in, that your question needs to be on that topic, okay? So otherwise we'll have to disconnect you and leave the phone lines open for another caller. So, all right. Okay.
Blow up your system. Go ahead. Try.
Yeah. So, okay, Rabbi, let's do this. Let's get into this, and meanwhile, I'm going to secretly unplug the phone lines because I don't want to get screamed at. just kidding. So
you won't get screamed at. They'll be screaming at me. It's all right.
Okay. All right.
You
cool.
know, this is definitely a hot topic.
Yeah.
You know, I guess first part, you know, is the question, you know, can I be a Noahide? You know, is being a Noahide a sham? So all you have to do is do a little bit of, you know, a Google search. You go to Dr. Rabbi Google, you know, do a search of Noahides, and there'll be plenty of pages, plenty of comments, how saying being a Noahide is a sham, right? You know, there's no such thing, and, you know, and all that. So simple answer is, well, what's a non-Jew allowed to do, you know, within Judaism? So, you know, we'll go live here and say that if God wanted everyone to be Jewish, you know, even you in Kingsland, Texas, if God wanted everyone to be Jewish, then they would be. So obviously there has to be a portion for a non-Jew, because Judaism, you know, like any other, you know, religion, it's not believe in us or you die, right? We learned that certainly from Rosh Hashanah. Even though Rosh Hashanah is a day of judgment, we say that it's a day God created the world. It's not, you know, in the birth of man. It's not the birth of him or, this other savior, or like nothing ever happened before they came into existence. It's the birth of all mankind.
Right.
So therefore, there has to be some place for a non-Jew, in the portion of Torah. The question is, as you started out with, and that is what exactly is that? So we're going to take a look at the Rambam. It's interesting. I'll just mention quickly that obviously the source for all these laws is in the Talmud. Now the Talmud doesn't speak that much about the Noahide laws. There are a few pages, Tractate Sanhedrin, and a few other places, but it's there's not too much written about it. And you would think that the earlier commentators and the later commentators, just like in every other question about Judaism, whether it's about prayer, whether it's about keeping the laws of Shabbos, festivals, marriage, divorce, like all these things, you would think it would go in the same category, and there'd be all these different laws, commentaries, etc. But there isn't, right? It's Talmud asks a number of questions of different things that people probably wouldn't even think that have to do with non-Jews, that they would be liable or that they'd be obligated to keep. But the final authority, seemingly on all these questions, is really Maimonides. It's really the Rambam, because later commentaries don't really discuss too much. It's a little bit here, a little bit there. But knowing what the Noahide laws are, you have to sort of find throughout Jewish literature or rabbinic literature, and see, okay, let's look at this law. This is pretty much what I do in my Noahide classes. Does this apply? Doesn't it apply? Should it apply? Right? But then, giving a little bit of background of what it is, gives us a certain, mentality of what we may be allowed to do or not. So it comes along, so that's by way of introduction, comes along the Rambam. Now the Rambam says, we'll start off in the Laws of Kings, chapter 9, beginning of chapter 9. The Rambam says that halacha 1, he says there are 6 things that God commanded Adam, right, the first man. 1 is idolatry, right? It's one of the 7 Noahide laws. 1 is taking God's name in vain, right? Cursing, usually using God's name. 1 is murder. 1 is immorality. 1 is stealing. 1 is setting up law courts. Now, keep in mind that one of the earlier commentaries says that the Noahide laws that a non-Jew is obligated in has to be something that makes logical sense. Now, there are certain things that in the Torah's eyes make logical sense. In our eyes, we wouldn't necessarily have thought that it makes logical sense. These things make logical sense. Idolatry, right? You can't have more than one God, right? Here's Bob. Don't leave home without him, right? Take this pocket God, or whatever. Taking God out of the picture. Murder, that makes sense. Stealing, that makes sense, right? But other things, let's say taking an animal and, making a hybrid with a different animal, taking a horse, and a donkey, and making a mule, right? Even though, a person's not going to get zapped for doing it, we see that mules definitely do exist, right? The question is a Noahide obligated for that? So you'd say, I never would have thought of that. You're right. I wouldn't have either. But
okay.
There is such a question.
Let's return to that in just a moment. Let's go ahead and take this caller. Caller, welcome to the show. Please tell us your name and where you're calling from.
Hi, my name's Renee, and I'm calling from Florida.
Hi, Renee. Welcome to the show. What's the question for Rabbi?
I have a quick question.
Sure.
Well, the preachers and everyone in Christianity, they always say that the Torah is dead. That's why they don't follow it. Why is the Torah in their Bible, and why do they cherry pick it on Sunday service?
Mm-hmm. Okay, here's what I'm going to do. I like that question, but we can't ask that on tonight's show because this is a different topic night. I'm going to write that question down, and I'm going to pass that along on the next show with Rabbi Singer. Is that okay? In fact, would you do me a favor? Send me an email to TORAHTalkQuestions@gmail.com. Send that question there, and then I will present that question for Rabbi Singer. He's going to love chewing on that one. So, okay?
Okay, TORAHTalk at Gmail.
TORAHTalkQuestions.
All right.
TENAK, just like I spell it on the station. TONAKTalkQuestions at gmail.com. Okay, thank you for calling in. Shalom. Okay, sorry about that. And again, just a reminder, everybody, keep it topic related tonight, please. Thank you. Rabbi, go ahead.
All right, so there are 6 things, right, that the Rambam mentions. We mentioned, again, it has to be something at least logical that we understand. Now, most people are not aware. As the Rambam continues, it says, even though we have a Kabbalah, we have a tradition. We have a tradition that they were given at Mount Sinai to Moshe himself. Now, if a Noahide wants to keep the Noahide laws, one of the things they have to do is acknowledge it comes from the Torah. So that would probably knock out a lot of people. This is one thing that's crucial. So he says it comes from Moshe Rabbeinu, and it was commanded to him, it was passed down, and comes along Noah himself, and he added another one, and then the other one he adds is called Aver Minachai, eating a limb from a live animal. Right? So, I don't think that's necessarily so practical. People aren't necessarily killing animals today, and then, before they die, eating a limb, it's kind of gross. But nonetheless, he said these laws existed until Abraham himself came on the scene. And then Abraham came, and there were other commandments, right? What did he do? He did bris milah. Right? Circumcision. That is, God saved that the best for last. You're 100 years old. Abe, I got a great idea. Take off the foreskin. Okay. And he fixed the morning prayer service. Yitzhak also added taking meiser, taking tithes, and he added another prayer service, which is an afternoon service. Yaakov added Gida Noshe. Gida Noshe is not eating the sciatic nerve. That's why the hind of an animal is always going to be sold to a non-Jew, even if it's slaughtered properly, because trabering is something that's pretty much been a lost art today. Getting the sciatic nerve and all the tendon, whatever, out. So we basically sell the hind of the animal to a non-Jew, and he prayed the evening service. Now, the evening service, the whole question whether it's obligatory, it's not obligatory. Eventually, it did become obligatory, and that is what we do. And in Egypt, they were given more commandments, etc., until Moshe Rabbeinu came and gave the Torah. So, according to the Rambam, at least at this point, it seems that there were a certain number of mitzvahs. There were 7 mitzvahs. There were other mitzvahs that Abraham added, that Isaac added, that Jacob added. You go through the book of Genesis, there's a whole question: were they Jews or were they Noahides? Right? It's a question one of the Torah giants asked, and he wrote a whole book. Has been translated into English, but goes through this whole thing through different stories throughout Genesis. If they really kept the Torah before, whatever the entire Torah looked like, how could Jacob marry two sisters? Right? That's forbidden. Right. Jews not allowed to do that. So there are all these different questions. So we're not gonna get into that. But the point is that Adam, the Rambam says that Adam was commanded on these 6. Noah added another one, but it comes through who? It comes through Moshe himself. So there's a tradition. It was really from Mount Sinai, but it started from Adam, and he passed it down to Noah, and then you had Abraham came on the scene, absolute monotheism, and etc. So comes along the Ramchal, Rav Moshe Chaim Lutzato, that he brings down in Derech Hashem, in the way of God, which book I give a class once a week on. I call it Intro to Kabbalah. He brings out like this, that at that point, when Abraham came on the scene, everybody had an opportunity to be part of him, right? Everyone could join. But up until when the Torah is given, there's a certain time frame. If they didn't become, Jews, going towards that path, then if they want to be a Jew, they have to go through conversion. But at the same time, no one's obligating people to be a Jew. What do you think? Everyone's going to come to my classes? You got to be kidding. Going to have a line down the block. Everyone wants to be a Jew. That's not the case. People can't move. Spouse doesn't want it. There are any number of issues, right, why someone wouldn't want to convert. I had someone once tell me, said, Rabbi, I'd love to convert. There's only one problem. I love shrimp. I can't give up shrimp. So they said, I'm not, I can't convert because of that. So fine. So we have the 7 commandments. Obviously, these 7 commandments, are a base. They are not the entire, they say, oh, why should I be a Noahide? There's only 7 commandments, only 7 laws. Well, yeah, they're the base of all the 7 laws, but there are, there are many other laws. Some say there are 65, 66, some say 70, whatever, however it comes out. But there's a lot more. There's a lot more out there than most people know, which gets into the other question is, so fine, now I understand it's not a sham, it's really a real thing. It's an option, it's a valid option. If someone wants to do it, which anytime I speak to anybody, I always ask them, do you ever consider, being a Noahide? Some people know what it is, other people don't necessarily know what it is, but there is a lot of leeway in what a non-Jew can do, which we're going to see. We're going to see now, according to the Rambam, exactly what this is. It goes into other details, what's considered immorality, what's considered, murder, and and all that. There are certain things that are similar to what Jews may be punished for. There are other things that they're liable for, and a Jew is not. So it's learned out from. It could be learned out from different verses. It could be an inference. It could be any number. Any number of things. So there are 2 main things that come out from this that the Rambam mentions. 2, pretty controversial things. That's why we're doing this. And that that is, can a non-Jew learn Torah, and can a non-Jew keep Shabbos? Right. Those are the two major questions. So the Rambam in the Laws of Kings, chapter 10, halacha number 9. He says the following, and he quotes the Talmud in Sanhedrin, and the Talmud in Sanhedrin says that a non-Jew that keeps the Torah is liable for the death penalty. Well, that doesn't look so good. That makes us look pretty bad. What is he allowed to learn? He's allowed to learn the 7 mitzvahs. That's all he's allowed to learn. Otherwise, if he delves into other mitzvahs that don't apply to him, if they don't apply, then like all the Noahide laws, if a non-Jew doesn't keep them, he's liable for the death penalty. Now, thank God, there is an idea called tshuva, an idea called repentance. Because if there wasn't an idea called repentance, then what happens if a non-Jew is an idolater, comes out of Christianity, right? Pretty much everyone agrees that Christianity is idolatry. Being that's the case, if a non-Jew coming out of Christianity says, I've seen the light, right? They've seen the light and they say, this isn't true. He's a false Messiah. I don't want to convert. I want to do whatever a non-Jew is allowed to do in the Torah. If he's not allowed, if he's liable for the death penalty and he can't repent, game over.
Right.
He doesn't even get up to bat. So how do we know that repentance exists? You see it by Cain, right? When he brought a sacrifice that God wasn't happy of, that God wanted to bring him back to tshuva. You see by Nineveh, right? What happened in the book of Jonah that we'll read on Yom Kippur, and you see that that Jonah finally goes and tells them, God's going to wipe you guys out, and and they do tshuva. So you see, there is a concept, of repentance. Whether it works exactly like repentance does for a Jew or not, all right, that's for a different discussion.
Okay.
But the point is that if they don't do tshuva, if they don't do tshuva, I'm sorry, the thing over here is they can only learn, right? I have to clarify this, but they can only learn the 7 mitzvahs and pretty much what applies to them. Everything else should be off limits, and we'll see. We'll go a little bit further and see what that means.
Okay, so just to clarify, so it's not forbidden for a non-Jew to keep the Sabbath day as long as they don't keep it like a Jew. I've heard different rabbis say they could keep the Sabbath as long as they violate at least one something or other, which realistically,
yeah. So that we're gonna that we'll get to. That
okay.
I mean, a non-Jew who in the process of conversion has to know how to keep Shabbos.
Okay,
right?
but
so
a non-Jew who's not converting, who wants to keep the Sabbath day. Let's say they come to my house and we do a Bible study. But it's on Saturday. We're relaxing. We're studying. So we're not allowed to study Torah. Is that what you're saying? According to in other words, Torah shebichsav, what we call the written Torah,
right? Well, or what we call the Bible, or the Old Testament, the old goodie, the old good book, right? So that you're allowed to learn.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Right?
Okay, it's the oral Torah, the Talmud, right?
The oral tradition, you know, is much more of an issue. But
that's good.
You know, you get all these books in English today, and you know, even commentaries on Rashi will bring down, and Rashi himself brings down oral tradition. Right, so they have to know basic things, what they're allowed to do, what they're not allowed to do. Delving into, the Talmud and other things, that's a different thing, right? That's really for the sake, of the Jewish people. It is kind of interesting that in Korea, they understand, Koreans understood, what the Jews have done throughout the centuries, and they attribute it to Talmud study, and they actually translated the Talmud into Korean. So, so now you have all these Koreans, learning Talmud because, they certainly believe that's what, makes the Jewish people unique, and, et cetera, and how they go off the charts in different, in different things. Yeah, so here, let's go a little bit further then. So the Rambam says it's only the 7 mitzvahs. Now, we mentioned before, they're more than 7. They're definitely more than 7, right? 65, more, whatever it is. There are definitely more. So whatever applies to a non-Jew, again, let's make clear, something that makes sense, to our own understanding.
Right.
So whatever makes sense, that they have to learn. How much in depth, right? So, again, delving into rabbinic sources, that's off limits. They can delve into, up to a point. Let's just say like that. But then people will say, I don't understand. Why can they only do their own thing, right? And this is a much more general issue, which I think is also important to hit. The Rambam says, as the Talmud says, that we could put this in, crazy statements by the Talmud. If a non-Jew learns Torah, he's liable for the death penalty. He can only learn his 7 mitzvahs. Why, why is he liable for the death penalty for that? Right? He wants to understand more. He wants to go more in depth. I come in contact with so many different people all over the world, and they just want truth. They want absolute truth. They've been lied to for so long, and been given or been sold. I've been sold, right? They've been sold a bag of bones,
right,
so to speak, and they want absolute truth. So this statement looks kind of bad because they're going to say, listen, I just want to learn. I'm not interested, in using it for other things or whatever. Just let me learn. Now let's keep in mind, the Talmud says clear, right? It's funny, mention the Talmud, can't speak about this to non-Jews. Oh, well, trash me. Anyway, the Talmud says clear that God went to all the nations of the world. Medrash brings down the same thing. God goes to all the nations. He goes to Esav, and he says, Esav, you want the Torah? And Esav asks, what's written in it? He says, don't kill. He says, what do you mean don't kill? The Torah says, I'm supposed to, my father gave me the blessing. I have to live by the sword. He says, don't kill. That's my livelihood, right? So Esav says, nah, I'm not interested. Goes to Yishmael, right? He goes to the Arabs and says, you want the Torah? They say, maybe. What's written in it? It says, don't steal. He says, what do you mean?
Mm-hmm.
I'm a wild man, and my hands in everybody else, everyone's hands in me. That's what I do for a living. That's my nature. Nah, I'm not interested. God goes to all the other nations and asks them if they want the Torah. Everyone rejects it, comes to Jewish people. God says, you want the Torah? They said, sure. They said, you want to know what's written in it? They said, Na'aseh v'nishma. They said, we will hear and we will do. We don't care what's written in it. God, you have a track record. We'll do whatever it takes. So God gives them the Torah. Now, at that point, someone still could have joined. If they didn't want to join, they have to go through conversion. But now, this gets into the question of Shabbos and all kinds of other things. Because when God comes to them, and he says, you want the Torah? And the Jewish people say, yes, every other nation. The Talmud says, for whatever it's worth, the Talmud says every other nation rejects it. So if every other nation rejected the Torah, and I don't care, I had somebody once tell me, if I would have been there, and I would have been in my time of my great-great-great-great-grandfathers, I wouldn't have rejected the Torah, so I don't have to convert. I'm like, Okay, but we don't care what you would have done. This is what happened. It got sealed. It's game over. Don't pass go. Don't collect 200. It's it.
Right.
You don't have a choice. You have to go through conversion. Doesn't matter what you would have thought or whatever. So all the nations reject the Torah. Now comes along all these non-Jews come out of idolatry. They say, I want a portion in Torah, and I want to learn Torah, and I want to keep Shabbos. So this person came to me and said, I want to keep Shabbos exactly like a Jew. I said, well, the Torah says it's not a good idea. Talmud says if you keep the Shabbos like a Jew, then you're liable for the death penalty. They said, if I would have been there and I would have rejected Torah, I said, it doesn't matter. The non-Jews, at that time, did not want the Torah. If they didn't want the Torah, what gives you the right to keep the Sabbath? Mm-hmm. Because when God makes a covenant with the Jewish people, happened at Mount Sinai, go to Exodus chapter 20, the 10 Commandments. What's one of the 10 Commandments? Keep the Sabbath day. Right? It's a sign of the covenant between God and the Jewish people. Now, since it's a sign, a Jew is not allowed to wear tefillin or phylacteries, whatever phylacteries are, on the Sabbath, because tefillin themselves are also a sign. So you can't have two signs on such a holy day. The Sabbath, Shabbos, is a holy day by itself. Now, if that's the case, this is not such a big jump. If that's the case, and your great-great-grandparents rejected the Torah, and you spit in God's face, and you say, I don't want the Torah, I wasn't interested. The Jewish people come along and say, I'll take the Torah, I don't care what's written in it. What gives you the right to say, I want a part in it? In my language, we call that chutzpah. Torah's rejected all over the place. You want to turn into a pretzel, you want to make up your own things, you want to say the Jews are this and the Jews are that. What gives you the right to have a part in it? That specific part. Then someone told me, but it says in the book of Genesis chapter 2, right? See, I'm giving you biblical references here. Thank me. Anyway, Genesis chapter 2 says God created the Sabbath, right? 6 days God created the world, 7th day God rested. So someone said, see, there's a proof I can keep Shabbos even if I don't want to convert, because God gave Shabbos to the world. So what's the answer? Simple answer is, over there, God's saying what Shabbos is, or to a certain extent. He created the world in 6 days, and he stopped. He didn't say, I'm giving Shabbos to the entire mankind. Not written in my book. I mean, maybe it's written in other versions. He didn't say that. That's not what the Torah says. It says he says he rested on the 7th day. Where do you see in that verse, as twisted as you want to twist it, where do you see that that's for all nations? Comes along the Torah. And the Torah says in Exodus chapter 7 and chapter 20, the Torah says God makes a covenant for to the Jewish people. What's that covenant? That's called the 10 Commandments, right? And the 10 Commandments, then everything else is given after that. And what we have written, is passed down. What we have oral is passed down. We have to understand what it means. But in the 10 Commandments itself, it says God gave Shabbos to the Jewish people. He didn't give it to all nations. So I'll ask the $1 million question. I don't care where a person came from. I don't care, what they're going to say and how much they want to do it. The really big question, the bottom line is, why in the world should you have a part in it at all? That's the question. It's not, if I do it, I'm liable for the death penalty. Why would you be liable for the death penalty? You want to tap into something that's off limits. If you want to be a Jew, be a Jew. If you don't want to be a Jew, why are you doing it? Right? So there are certain things that are specific to the Jewish people. Tefillin is one thing, right? A non-Jew shouldn't do. And even if they're in the process of conversion, they only do it at the very end, right? They only start learning to put them on at the very end, but the parchment's not in there, right? Because that has extra holiness. Mezuzah, the same thing, right? If there's a whole question if they're allowed to do that, which we'll get to, and tzitzis as well. So it comes along the Rambam with that words of introduction. The Rambam says, if a non-Jew keeps Shabbos, he's liable for the death penalty. Now, we learn over there, that the reason he's liable for the death penalty, as we mentioned before, is because God gave Shabbos to the Jewish people. He didn't give it to anybody else. So if you want to keep it exactly like a Jew does, that's what you mentioned before. If you keep it exactly like a Jew does,
need to convert.
you're liable for the death penalty.
Right.
Even someone in the process of conversion, not allowed to keep Shabbos like a Jew. They have to do something on purpose. Obviously, they're going to make mistakes along the way. That's clear, right? Because of lack of knowledge. But they are, they are allowed to keep Shabbos because they want to convert. But at the same time, you got this problem. If I keep it like a Jew, I'm liable for the death penalty. That you're not allowed to do. So therefore, you have to do something on purpose. It's not enough to make a mistake, right? It's not enough to say, oh, I make mistakes anyway, so I'm good. So the Torah says, no. Torah says that you have to do it on purpose to show 100%. You're not doing it like a Jew.
Right. Let's take this caller. Caller, welcome to the show. Please tell me your name, where you're calling from.
Hi, my name is Juan. I'm actually calling from Colombia.
Oh, Juan, welcome to the show.
I'm in a town called Fusagasugá.
Okay, very good. Welcome.
Okay, and so I'm actually reading the. I recently bought the Chumash.
Okay, very good.
I have it in Spanish, so I might have a little hard time here with the translation. But in the in Devarim in chapter 10 in verse 19, it speaks about, the way I'm reading it here, it says, and you will love the converts. Like, I'm guessing it means the people that convert.
Right.
Looking at the same verse online, it says the stranger. So my question is, does the Torah actually acknowledge converts, like people who are going to be converting?
Let me get that verse.
While I'm on
That's fine. Yeah, stay on the line. You're fine. You don't have to hang up.
What's that verse exactly?
It's Devarim,
okay.
Deuteronomio, in chapter 10, verse 19.
Okay, 10:19, got it.
In the Chumash that I have in the Spanish.
Okay, so ger is the word. What is specifically, what is that referring to, Rabbi? The ger. Don't hang up, my friend. Just sit tight. Okay.
No, I'm here.
Okay, wonderful. Just sit tight right there. I'm going to try to put up a Bible on the screen here in just a second. I've got to put in an IP address. Hang on just a second.
Yeah, it translates it as stranger. That's what it means, right? That the word ger literally means stranger, right? But it says you love the stranger because you were stranger to the land of Egypt, right? Stranger here, there are many times where the Torah says you can't abuse a convert, right? Many, many times. People transgress this all the time. It's unfortunate, right? But here, loving the stranger, is talking about, it's talking about a convert, right? In theory, I could say maybe it's talking about, a non-Jew, what we call a ger toshav, which doesn't exist today, which is a non-Jew who lives amongst the Jewish people. He keeps the Noahide laws, can't be an idolater and all that, right? So, he's got to be treated with respect, as well. But, I'm pretty sure it's referring over there to a, to a convert, because there are many, many times where the Torah says, you have to love the convert, you have to treat them properly. You can't cause them, any suffering because of where they came from. A person can't say, oh, I remember you when you were a non-Jew. I remember you used to eat shrimp. I remember, you practiced voodoo or whatever, right? That's totally forbidden. There are myriad of transgressions, for treating a convert properly. And I get this question, quite a bit, that, people have difficulty and people, treat them like trash. And that's not the way things, definitely, should be done. But even the non-Jew, even if it's talking about a ger toshav, a non-Jew lives in the land and doesn't convert, still also got to treat him with respect.
Right.
It can't be abused.
But with that said, let's say a non-Jew, a ger toshav living in the land, right? Say they got Jews, they're supposed to treat them with respect. What if that ger toshav, what if they're not acting respectfully? What if they are actually violating? If they're not a convert and they are clearly violating halakha on.
So if they're violating the Noahide laws, all things being equal, a Jew has the ability to kill them if they see them transgress. You have
Not
a witness.
that they would, but they would. Got it.
You can. They're liable for the death penalty. Now that's everywhere in the world. Obviously, you can't.
Yeah.
You see a non-Jew walk into a church, boom, blow him up. You see him walk into a Hindu mosque or whatever, blow him. You can't do that. All right. Even though they are liable, they are definitely. They are definitely, they're certainly, they're certainly liable. Obviously, there are things we can't do. I mean, the Rambam says clear, all idolatry has to be ripped up and destroyed all over, not just in the land of Israel, right? When the Jews go in the land of Israel, they have to destroy all the altars and all the, and all the idols, when, after they conquer the land. But the Rambam goes further. He said it's such a disgrace to God, so to speak, that in all lands it should be done. Well, there's only one problem. It's called, there's a concept called dina d'malchus ladina, which means that you have to go by the law of the land. So if you blow up a church, you go into jail. You take a statue, Robert E. Lee, and crush it. You're in big trouble over here. So that you're not allowed to do. But the Rambam says if you would be able to do it, and you wouldn't have any issues, then it has to be uprooted.
Okay,
so then you get into the question, if that's the case, why did God allow all these, churches and all these things, to exist? And simple answer is because we have free will.
Okay.
God gives us free will.
Let's go ahead and ask your other question you have, and in case we didn't answer the first question good enough, you can clarify that too if you need to.
Right. Yeah, and I'm sorry. Yeah, I had a hard time hearing the rabbi just because I muted the YouTube and I'm listening just through the call.
Oh,
but I think I got most of it.
Okay, good.
So now, like I said, I'm reading this from the Humash.
Okay.
On the Humash it says converse, not stranger, and then going to the commentaries, and I'm translating this as I read it. So please bear with me. It says that God's love for the stranger or for the converse is particularly big, because he accepts the will of Hashem on his own when he doesn't have to.
Right.
So I guess going straight to the question that I have in front of me, but when you read the Torah at first, when it says that they came out of Mitzrayim, it says in a lot of places that you read in the Torah, it says that this law is given to the Israelite as well as the stranger that dwells within them. So how are we supposed to, understand that? Like, I know that there's a conversion process, and if I know I want to convert to Judaism, and for example, I'm in a town where there's no Judaism here, there's no kosher food, there's nothing, but I want to do as much as I can, keep the Sabbath, put them as a salt on my door. Are we doing wrong? Are we harming ourselves by doing these things? Even though I can't convert yet until I, get the chance to move to a city or do Aliyah where there is Torah?
Right. Okay, listen, since you couldn't hear Rabbi explain very good on the phone, why don't you go ahead and disconnect and listen to his answer on the YouTube channel. That way it's a little more clear, okay?
You got it. Thank you so much.
Okay, hey, great questions, man. Thanks for calling in. Okay, shalom, shalom.
Excellent. Very good question.
So Rabbi, I was told once that having a mezuzah on the door is equal to that of wearing tefillin because of the way the verse is. I don't know if that's true. If it's true?
So the one of the commentaries on the Rambam says that there are two things that a non-Jew should stay away from, and sort of mentioned this before. One of them is tefillin, because of the unbelievable holiness, of tefillin. See, we love black, right? Black straps, wrap ourselves up, right? So you got tefillin, that's off limits, totally off limits. Mezuzah, also off limits, right? Because the parchment that goes inside. But this commentary doesn't say outwardly it's forbidden. He says the language is ra'ui lahachmer. Ra'ui lahachmer means it's fitting to be stringent. Now, people will say, see, he doesn't say it's forbidden. You're right. He doesn't say clear. It is forbidden. But it's pretty clear. Tefillin, are a Jewish, it belongs to the Jews. Tzitzis, if you're not going to convert, right, is a similar thing. Even though the Rambam, interesting, doesn't bring it over there, in the laws of tzitzis, he does bring down, right, that a non-Jew shouldn't do it. So now the question is a non-Jew in the process of conversion. If a non-Jew is in the process of conversion, certainly tefillin are out. That everyone agrees, right? That all the commentaries will say, yeah, they shouldn't do it, until right before conversion. And even if they do it before conversion, there shouldn't be any parchment in the boxes. They just have to learn how to put them on. That's one thing, right? Mezuzah. Now, mezuzah for the sake of conversion, a non-Jew is allowed to put up. Now, some may say, well, what about over here? What about what this commentary says? They shouldn't be allowed to put up mezuzah either, right? So a non-Jew in general, for the sake of being a non-Jew, they're not interested in converting, right? There are certain things that are going to be off limits. Like I remember asking my Rebbe once about this. I said, a non-Jew asked me, can they put up a mezuzah? He said, are they converting? I said, no. So he said, so why do they want to put it up? What's the purpose of putting up? There has to be, at a certain level, or maybe even at a bigger level, that there has to be a distinction between Jews and non-Jews, right? Let's make that clear. And the reason is because God gave the Torah to us. We're the ones who chose it. The non-Jews weren't interested. They didn't want any part of it. Fine. Now, all of a sudden, you got these non-Jews coming out and say, I want to be part of it. Now, the million-dollar question is, how much are they allowed? How much are they allowed to do? So something that is a distinguishable Jewish garment, tefillin is a garment. It's a Jewish garment. It's off limits. Tzitzis for a non-Jew, if they're not going to convert, definitely should be off limits. Mezuzah, these things have, certain levels of holiness that other things don't. So therefore, it should be off limits. But someone in the process of conversion, they're allowed, they're allowed to practice and to know what to do, and they're allowed to learn if they're in the process of conversion. So then someone says, well, if I take your classes online, what if I don't end up converting? Then according to this, I transgress the Torah prohibition of teaching a non-Jew Torah. Right? So how exactly does that work? Does it make me look good? I'd be pretty much in big trouble. And the answer is that even if someone gets accepted by a rabbinical court, they go to a rabbinical court says, yes, we accept you as a student for conversion. Now, what happens if they go sour? They don't end up converting, right? We're not, no one's obligated to convert. So actually, a big rabbi once told me, they said, well, if they don't end up converting, so you transgress the Torah prohibition of teaching a non-Jew Torah. So I said, but 80% of non-Jews in the process of conversion don't end up converting for any number of reasons. They can't move. Their spouse doesn't want to convert. It's too hard. It's whatever, any number of issues. So I said, if someone gets accepted by a Beis Din, right, by a rabbinical court, and that rabbinical court gives them a mentor, and that mentor teaches them, and they go sour. You want to tell me now the Beis Din is setting them up to make a mistake? There's a verse in the Torah. It says that lifnei iver lo titain mikshol. You're not allowed to put a stumbling block in front of someone. So how's anyone allowed to teach a non-Jew, for the sake of conversion? Because they could go sour. That doesn't make any sense. That doesn't make any logical sense. I brought this up to my Rebbe, and his beard went like Yosemite Sam and went zoop. He goes, who said that? He went absolutely ballistic. He said, that doesn't make any sense. And I said the same thing. I'm on a much lower level, but I came to the same conclusion. So the simple answer is a non-Jew, they're allowed to practice if they're in the process of conversion, right? That they, if they want to wear, they want to wear, a skull cap, they want to wear yarmulke, they want to wear tzitzit, they want to practice how to do it, they're allowed to do it if they're in the process of conversion. Now, some people say, but they're not even Jewish, and how are they allowed to do it? Well, what are you going to do at the last second? Say, okay, you're allowed to do it now? It's going to be hard for them, or, all these other different ideas. You got to let them practice. If they're not doing it for the sake of conversion, that's a whole different beast. That's a whole different beast, because again, if the Torah is given to the Jews, and the non-Jews say, fine, I don't want to convert, then why should they be allowed to do certain things that have Jewish trappings all over it? You might say, well, can they build a sukkah? Can they shake a lulav? The Rambam also says that any that in the laws of Kings, chapter 10, the next halacha, in Halacha 10, it says any non-Jew, any Noahide that wants to do any of the mitzvahs in the Torah, they're allowed to, and they get merit for it. And it shouldn't prevent them from doing it. That's pretty funky for the Rambam, right? You shouldn't prevent them from doing it, but there are certain things that should be off limits. They're not allowed to do anything they want. They're not allowed to read out of the Torah if they feel like doing it. I mean, there has to be a boundary. You know, it's not being as open-minded until our brains fall on the floor. No, we'll let them do this, we'll let them do that, we'll let them do the other thing. So what distinguishes them from being a Jew? At the same time, it says if they want to do other mitzvahs, they can. But the Rambam just said before. The Rambam said that, you know, learning Torah, you know, whatever that means, is off limits. Keeping Shabbos is off limits. There are things that are off limits. He doesn't give an overriding permissibility to say you can keep any mitzvah that you want. Even though he says if they want to keep mitzvahs, they're allowed to. Now the question is, and that's probably you know, this topic right now, how far do we go? You know, where do we draw the line? And that is the question. Certainly by Shabbos, everyone would agree that's for the Jewish people. Right. And I was arguing with this person, and they kept saying, God doesn't want me to desecrate Shabbos. I said, oh, yes, he does. Because if you don't, you're liable for the death penalty. Right? So they said, but how could that be? So anyway, the person's going back and forth. So finally I said, listen, you and your great-great-grandparents and anybody down the line rejected the Torah. That is the bottom line. All of a sudden, you want to come generations later, and you want to, you know, put up your boots, you know, lift up your bootstraps and say, I have a right, I can do it, and I'm going to do exactly like a Jew. Think again. Right. You know, think once, think twice, think three times. That is not the case. Now, you want to tap into it? You want to have some portion in it? Fine. Don't do it like a Jew. And even if you say, I'm going to do it on Sunday, I'm going to keep the Sabbath on Sunday, but I'm going to do it like a Jew does, even if it's on the wrong day, that's liable for the death penalty also. That is also totally 100% forbidden. So if they do it on the Shabbos, you know, on the right day, it's forbidden like a Jew. If it's done on Sunday, Tuesday, Friday, it doesn't matter. And again, it's also going to be forbidden. Again, to clarify, you can confirm what I'm saying, hopefully. It's forbidden to do it like a Jew not because Torah tells you how to do it, but because the oral Torah tells you how to do it. So if you're trying to keep Shabbat just like a Jew, then that means that you're following the oral Torah on how to do that. Right. Okay. Right. Just wanted to clarify. Okay. Right. Good. So then people say, well, I don't follow the oral Torah. Then why do you want to keep Shabbos? then why do you want to keep the 39? Category? Right. Wow. You know, it's like these Christians got all kinds of problems, you know, with oral law. But if it wouldn't be for oral law, they wouldn't be able to interpret anything because the Torah never had vowels. So they have to rely on us, right? So they're relying on us a bit. I don't hold the oral law. Oh, yes, you do. No, I don't. Yes, you do. You know, it's up to, it's certainly up to a point. But, you know, again, you know, if God wanted everyone to be Jewish, they would be. So there has to be a delineation. There has to be some sort of boundary over here. It can't just be, a Hefkerveld. It can't just be ownerless and, people can do what they want and, whatever. As, someone commented on, on your totally controversial, post, why should these non-Jews be allowed to dress up as, if Jews, right? If they're not going to convert? I agree. I agree. There's certain things that they probably shouldn't be doing, but again, if they're in the process of conversion, why shouldn't they be, if they're in the process of conversion, fine. If they're dressing up, like a Jew, they have no intention to convert, shouldn't be wearing a tallis. She certainly shouldn't be putting on tefillin, that's for sure. And not keeping Shabbos like a Jew, even if you know all the laws, that, you have to make a distinction. And one thing I want to make clear is that, looking at these laws, and understanding, where they come from and what the sources are, and are they liable or are they not liable, you have to have proper rabbinic authority to do such a thing. I spoke to actually a great rabbinic authority over, who was here in my town in for Shabbos, I was telling him what I do, working with converts and whatever. Then I mentioned I work with Noahides, and he's a tremendous rabbinic authority, accepted, by just about everybody in the English-speaking world, and I'm talking in the Hebrew-speaking world also. And he said, "You work with Noahides? You know how complicated that is?" I said, "Yeah." I said, "Yeah, I'm aware because
that's funny.
I spend enough time going through certain things. Does it apply? Doesn't apply? And there's just a lot of misinformation, a tremendous amount of misinformation by what I'm going to call pretenders. They're pretenders because they don't have proper rabbinic authority. They may claim it, but I can also claim I believe in the tooth fairy, but I don't think the tooth fairy exists.
That's
so, funny. You better have proper rabbinic authority that backs what you say, especially on such a controversial topic, and if you don't, you better keep your big mouth shut, because that is what the scary part is. Because more and more that I see, not just people working with converts, specifically with Noahides, it's a who's who of whack jobs. My language, of people who should not ever open their mouths and say things that they don't know.
Yeah.
And I'll get flack for this afterwards, but it doesn't matter because. I've had to sit and deal with people, and they say, "Well, I saw this and I saw that, and I came out totally confused." You're right. Why are you totally confused? Because it doesn't make any sense. And if it doesn't make any sense and it's not clear, so either it could be a problem with the way the person's interpreting things and the way they're giving it over, and it could be it's confusing because it doesn't make any sense. Right? And there's a lot out there. I mean, it's absolutely 100% confusing. I agree. What is a non-Jew allowed to do? How are they allowed to do it? What applies, what doesn't apply? But for goodness sakes, at least admit I'm not sure or whatever. Don't come up with this whole new idea and say I can do what I want, and if you come out against me, I'm going to blast you.
Right.
We call that in rabbinic literature, or actually I coined the term. I coined the term. Right, I'm going to get a patent, so don't patent it because I'm going to sue you. It's called being a rabbinic baby. That's what it is. Right. You have the claim. I think I'm right. You're all wrong. You know nothing. Think again. The Torah also says you want to be a rabbi. You want to learn from someone. That person you learn from says in Tractate Chagiga 16a, I think it's 16a, that it says they have to be. In your eyes, they have to be like an angel. Doesn't mean they're perfect, but they have to be an angel. They have to be like an angel. And if people are getting called out and being called names and other things, I should learn Torah from such a person? I don't think so.
Right. Okay, we got about 2 minutes left. So, tell me. Okay, so let's just say I'm going to go ahead and follow through with our plans once a month or whatever to have a Shabbat gathering. I'll say gathering. How would you guide me into doing that, or anybody else who's thinking the same thing that I am? Someone who like me has a handful of Orthodox rabbis in their shirt pocket, technically, for guidance.
When your system holds up.
Well, you're the only one it typically doesn't hold up for. So
for the last 2 days, you couldn't do anything. I came back on.
I know. This wasn't the system, though. You blew up my computer twice. This is actually my recording software. That's different. That's a different thing. So, but hey, you brought me good mazel right now because we've been doing good right now for exactly 59 minutes and 12 seconds. So. So give me guidance in your understanding of halakha, just on one foot.
If you want to learn, you want to have a Bible study, not a problem. You want to you want to pray. What can a Noahide pray? That we could have a whole topic on.
Let's do that. Let's do that again. Okay, we can make another show.
Yeah, I mean that's a very wide topic. I just will mention one thing. And that is, like my Rebbe said, a non-Jew wants to say the Shema. They should definitely say the Shema.
Good.
Saying that
Good.
God is
Good.
one, God is unique in the world.
Right.
That's a good thing, right? Are they going to say though, thank God that I returned my soul, that God gave me the soul back in my body? That's a Jewish concept. Is he going to say the Shemona Esrei, silent meditation?
Oh,
all
really?
we ask for?
So the Modani, you saying I shouldn't say the Modani? in the mornings?
I mean, it applies to a Jew. Thank God for giving my soul back, and that soul is holy, whatever. The soul makeup of a Jew and a non-Jew is different. It could be that the non-Jew soul goes up and, comes back down or whatever. But, I'll mention one thing, one quick thing, just on prayer. And I just gave a class on this the other day, on it, actually yesterday. With the Ramchal, Ramosh Chaim Utatu, and Derech Hashem, and the Way of God, what he brings down, he says the prayers are very specific. I mean, they correspond to the different spiritual universes, and whatever we understand from it, we understand. But the bottom line is that the prayers are divinely inspired, and they're very specific, and the verses are quoted are very specific. And all that, there's an order. You shouldn't go out of order, and unless you really have to. All these different things, and it really blows the mind what it is. So comes along, non-Jew says, yeah, I want to say this, and I want to say that. I mean, there's specific things absolutely for a Jew. So
okay, cool.
For a Noahide prayer book that someone is actually working on now. There shouldn't be just, translations of many Jewish prayers. They want to say Psalms, they're allowed to say Psalms. They want to say specific Psalms, okay. They want to be consistent and say, say this one, say that one. There's no issue. Again, the main problem is there's a lot of leeway. There's a tremendous amount of leeway over here in a certain way because nothing is clarified. Nothing in the Talmud clarifies. It says, okay, a non-Jew can't do this, can't do this, can't do the other thing. Are they allowed to pray? They're allowed to pray. What are they allowed to pray? Don't know.
Wow.
It's
well, let me ask you
totally
this.
Not clear.
So the Shema, right? Now, is the Ve'ahavta, is that considered part of the Shema, or is that a separate prayer?
I mean, that's
that is the Shema, right? Or is it kind of?
That is the Shema, right?
Okay,
I wouldn't say the third paragraph that represents, where it sits doesn't apply to them. But you want to say the second paragraph. You want to say the second paragraph about reward and punishment. That definitely applies. That's a good thing.
Okay.
You should love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your might. That's it should be applied to a non-Jew also.
The reason why I'm asking you specifically on that too is because, well, bifold, but one of the reasons is because on one of my Hebrew classes I'm going to teach. I was going to use the Ve'ahavta because there's a lot of repetitive speech in there. But if it's not something that's appropriate in its complete form for the non-Jew, then I'll probably send it to you and let you modify it.
Any Bible thumpers, any Christians, they'll love it. I love the Lord. I love Him. This is great. You're gonna have a great time with them.
You're funny. Hey, you see this title behind me? Controversial Issues. That's why we are here. Oh, my gosh. Wow. I'm going to sit down now. I had to stand up for a few minutes. That was actually kind of nice. But now my camera's going to be like chopping
all my yelling and screaming, you were actually able to stand up? I can't believe it.
Oh, man. I'll tell you what. Sometimes it's necessary. Oh, wow.
I need a break. Let me out of here.
Yeah, right. Well, I'll tell you what, I personally have enjoyed this show tremendously, and I really appreciate everything you brought and the care. I know that you love what you do. You love Hashem, and you love the people that you teach. And for me, that's all I need to know. So I really appreciate that very much. So
not everybody. You should know. Right before Yom Kippur, I always tell my students, I ask them for forgiveness.
That's funny.
If I said anything to, offend people, they said, Rabbi, you said that last year and the year before. I said, I know, but it's hard for me.
You are a funny guy. Oh, my goodness gracious. Okay, cool. Well, I guess we'll call that a wrap for tonight. And it's been fun. Thank you all for tuning in. And we'll see you guys, as all goes well, in 2 weeks. Same time, same place as usual. So, Rabbi, I'll miss you. So Shabbat Shalom when the time is appropriate, and to you all as well. By the way, just as a footnote for all the viewers out there, if everything goes well, we'll do TNT tomorrow night. I missed it on Monday. Computer's back up and running. Hopefully, we'll try to do TNT tomorrow night, 8 p.m. Central. You don't want to miss it. Rabbi Stuart Federow. So thank you all, and thank you.
My show rocks. No problems. Ha ha.
Hey, we did good, man. It was really good. Take care. Shalom, shalom, everybody.
Shalom, everyone.
חשוב מכל חשוב והכרחי להיות ביחד. איפוק זו העוצמה, ויתור זו הגדולה, השאיפה